Hi, this is Miss Jill Louise Starr again, and I'd like to finish my discussion about the current elected deputy mayor of Vernon Township, New Jersey, who belongs in jail and is a true career criminal. I discussed a lot about that yesterday when I was a police informant for former West Milford detective, when he was a West Milford police detective back in the 1990s, and I was a police informant for him. After Harry J. Shortway set me up to be killed, which I discussed yesterday and is clearly in my blog and is also clearly on federal record, because William Surchinski, who was the internal affairs officer for West Milford Township at that time during 1990 and 1991, after Harry Shortway set me up to be killed using organized crime and an ad in the Suburban Trends newspaper where I was supposed to show up and would have never been found again, Mr. Surchinski, the internal affairs officer, picked me up in Pompton Lakes by a rooming house, a very slimy rooming house where I was staying because I was homeless at the time, on the corner up there, and he brought me into a warehouse down the street where I could show you that was full of federal agents, and they sat me down and they said I was a young girl with a crush on Harry Shortway, which was why I continued being a police informant for him for so long after everybody told me I shouldn't. But in any event, they sat me down, and the federal agents said, "We know what happened, we know about the incident," and they said, basically, quote, "Your life was endangered by Harry Shortway. You almost can immediately break all contacts, all ties with him." I was very stupid and very naive at the time because all I could think about was, oh, he was handsome, he was cute, and I was infatuated with Harry Shortway. What I should have been thinking about was my life was almost taken from me because of what he had done. After that, Harry Shortway tried to put me in a mental hospital. That failed. He tried to arraign me and put me in jail, where he said no one would ever find me again and I'd get beat up and killed in Passaic County Prison on 10 traffic tickets. That failed. And he tried freezing me to death. And this is what I'm going to be discussing today. You can see the picture. A lot of you have probably noticed I have a picture of a car, my black car, where I used to live on the corner of Route 23 North and Oak Ridge Road by a man. I rented a little room on Section 8 housing by a man named George Strauss. It's probably still there. It's called George Strauss Motors. Anyway, you could see my car during an emergency. This was a emergency snowstorm declared by the New Jersey governor at the time, which might have been Whitman, I forget. But I walked out of the small apartment I was renting, and I was only in my nightgown and a pair of little floppy shoes, and I put my key in the car to warm it up, and I went next door where G&A Bagels used to be, or maybe still is, and I walked and I got a bagel. When I got out of the bagel store, I realized my car keys and my house key I had accidentally locked them in my running car, which you could see covered with snow. I was freezing because I only had my nightgown on. I only planned on warming my car up and walking next door, getting the bagel and some coffee and running in. But now I was stuck outside freezing to death. I called the back detective line, and Peter Van Giltz, another detective and a very close partner to Harry Shortway, answered the phone. I called the back detective line, which I knew because I thought maybe they'd help me. I called 973-728-1088-1088, which was the West Milford detective back line. I said, and Peter Van Giltz, which voice I recognized in a flash, answered the phone and said, "What can I do for you, Jill?" I explained the situation, that this is an emergency snowstorm, and that my car keys and my house keys were locked in my running car outside my apartment, which he knew where it was. And I said, "I'm going to freeze to death. I'm only in a nightgown and a pair of flip-flops, little sandals." I said, could you please send a squad car down here to Jimmy, the lock, my door opener, I'm going to freeze to death. A West Milford squad car shortly came. In 10 minutes, he looked at me and he laughed, and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this for you, Jill. I don't have a Jimmy, and I can't help you." And he left. And that's all he said. He just left me there. I was freezing to death, half dead, frozen. I didn't know what to do. The bagel store didn't want me just standing around in there. Maybe they didn't like me either, because I'd call the police on them, and they had a lot of noisy drug addict clients. They used to hang out and drink right next to my apartment all night, and they didn't like me, so they told me to get out. I was freezing just standing there when somebody finally came and said, "What are you doing, little girl?" And I said, "I'm freezing to death. The police wouldn't help me, please." I cried and begged. I said, "Please help me, I'm going to die out here." You know, and they helped me, and they gave me my keys. I went in my apartment, and I cried and cried. I'm going to read the article to you. It says, "Additional proof, West Milford police in West Milford, New Jersey, tried to kill me." You could see my car. It's on my Google website. It was in this emergency snowstorm in the late 1990s, when I was still when I just started as a young student at William Patterson College. In Wayne, New Jersey, where I was living when this photo was taken, on the corners of Route 23 North and Oak Ridge Road in West Milford Township, USA. This was taken on the corner where George Strauss, STRUSS, owns a car lot and rents several small apartments, studios, for about $400 or $500 a month. Well, I rented one of them. I rented the one on the far end next to the G&A bagel store. It was in this state of emergency snowstorm I had walked out of my apartment next to the bagel store, dressed in merely a sweater, a nightgown, and a pair of sandals of some nature. It was like walking out of my front door into my neighbors, going to the bagel store, because it was very, very close, maybe just 3 feet, 4 feet. And I'd be at the bagel store, so I wasn't worried. I turned my car on because I was going to church or something that day, and I was planning to leave, so I warmed up the car. And when I walked out of the bagel store, I noticed that my house keys were also on that keychain, and I accidentally locked all my keys in the car, and the car was running. I was freezing, I couldn't get back in my apartment, and I could not get the keys out of the car. I began to panic. I was locked out of my house as well. I walked next door to the bagel store, and they let me use the phone to call the West Milford police. Detective Peter Van Giltz, a very close detective to Harry Shortway, who knew what was going on, that was also involved with Harry J. Shortway trying to murder me, answered the phone. I called the back detective line. I told him, "Could you please, Pete, send a squad car down to my apartment," which he knew where it was located, "to help me get my keys when we freeze to death and die out here." He said he would, and he did. He sent a squad car down. When it got there, the cop said he didn't have a Jimmy, he wasn't going to help me, and he left. I was freezing to death. I was sure I was going to die. Look at the car. I was half covered with snow myself. My apartment was right in back of my car, but I couldn't enter. I was going to break a window, but I was just young, in my 20s, and I didn't know what to do at the time. I was just trying to ask people. I was like waving them down at the bagel store, saying, "Hey, can you help me? Can you help me?" I finally found a man, thank God, who helped me and got my keys out of the car. He had a Jimmy, and he jimmied my car door open, and he saved my life. I'm eternally grateful for whoever that person is, and if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're storing great treasures in heaven for saving my life when the police went. Anyway, I do want to say the police officer, I do not remember who he was, did come. He saw my condition. I was freezing. I was barely dressed in my nightgown and a pair of sandals. It was declared a state of emergency, which means no one was allowed to travel on the roads, buy gasoline, or go anywhere out of their apartments because it was so dangerous. The gasoline was reserved for only emergency vehicles. In any such circumstance, the law was police officers certainly had to help me in some way, and they wouldn't. They laughed and they left. This was another way at Harry J. Shortway and Peter Van Giltz. They did not want me to testify against them for everything that I knew that happened and everything I knew that they had done, including dealing cocaine to my ex-husband when I was formerly living in West Milford when I was 18. They tried to kill me, so they would have to deal with me in court. Since killing me failed, they tried to freeze me to death. I'll take a lie detector test at any time against any of them. We're still working, and I think Pete Van Giltz still does up there. Luckily, I'm still alive to tell you this story. Right down the street, there's another place called Clinton Road, Route 23 South and Clinton Road. After I moved out of that apartment by the bagel store, I moved into another place there. The man was crazy, and I found out why. He said that the police used to chase his wife. One of the West Milford police officers wanted him to leave his wife and wanted his wife. When he found out I was associated with the cops and I was the police informant, he threw me out of the house. He was so scared of the police, and I told him he wasn't the only one now. I believe his story too. And there were a lot of other stories that I've heard while I was a police informant. I heard that above McKagey's bar in Malcolm Road, an Irish bar, down by Ananas Deli, there's a person there that has a full-blown AIDS. His wife did too. The West Milford cops set up the guy to have him arrested so he could steal his wife, who we didn't know had AIDS. I don't know the whole story, but that's just some of the stuff that goes on up here. Their bodies are found all the time. In fact, Harry asked me to work a case where they found a girl, a teenager, chopped up and left to die on Clinton Road, where organized crime leaves dead bodies all the time because rigor mortis sets in before anyone can find the cause of death. It's a very well-known place. In fact, when the first assistant prosecutor to Mr. Fava, when I was attending William Patterson, Mr. Warmington taught my law class. He used to say all the time, the organized crime uses Clinton Road to dump off bodies because rigor mortis sets in and no one can ever find the cause of death because the stomachs have no food left in them. Anyway, this is why I said that I feel many times safer with Ratko Mladic in Yugoslavia and Goran Hadjic than I ever do now, sitting in my apartment by Harry Shortway's friends in Bloomingdale, who tried to kill me many times by turning up my gas stove, and I had called in over 80 times to PSENG, my gas company, and they knew I had a gas link. It's a terrible situation, and I'm asking the media to help me, please. I need to leave, and my life is in danger. Thank you. And I'll continue if I can later with more.